with a short invocation which is for the well-being of everyone, and if you can join me in chanting Om, the universal sound of the universe. Sit straight with your back erect. Close your eyes. सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। This prayer is an invocation that may we all be protected, may we enjoy our sessions, may we all put in our efforts together, the speaker in trying to make the people understand, and the students and the listeners trying to understand. At the same time, may our intellect be bright and brilliant, and may there be no misunderstanding between us. This is how all studies start in India, with an invocation where we all tune our minds together. Each one of us comes from different sources, and at this moment our mind has been busy with different things. Thus each one has his mind tuned up at a different frequency. So when we start to meet together, if we can bring our mind to the same frequency, then the transaction of knowledge takes place very easily. This is the first lesson in mind control. Very often in this world, when we meet people, we find that it is even difficult to communicate to them the ideas which are in our mind. At the same time, very often we are not receptive to their ideas in their mind, because our mind is not under our control in most cases. This series of talks that we are going to have for the next 2 days, today and tomorrow, are on the topic of master the mind. Each one of us have a mind, isn't it? Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, each one of us have a mind. Mind is that equipment in us that makes our senses function. It is the help of it we think and we feel. It is with the mind that we experience this world, and it is with this mind that we transact in this world. Thus, whatever will be the condition of our mind, that will be the condition of our life. So as our mind, so will be the world that we will experience. In fact, the world that we experience, the world that we live in, is all determined by our mind itself. When the mind is depressed and dejected, what do you see in the world? Tell me. you will see only depression and dejections only. Is it not? The day your mood, so-called mood, is not very good. Don't we say? Mood is not very good. Anything you see will be depressing, disgusting, while other people are laughing away and you are miserable. See how important is the mind in our experience of the world. I very often give this example that as our mind, so is the world that we experience. If your mind is in such a condition that somebody has broken your heart, and the mind is feeling very miserable, and if the sun is shining that day, you say, see, the sun is also scorching the earth. If that day it is cloudy, you will see the whole atmosphere so grey and gloomy. And if it's raining, even the heavens are crying for me. Isn't it? While on the other hand, if you are cheerful and when the sun is bright, oh fine, the sun is smiling and you are cheerful. And if it is dark that day, oh wonderful, look at the clouds, they have gathered there to thunder my heartbeats. And if it rains, say, see, poetically he writes that the heaven are showering love upon the earth. Thus the world that you experience is not that the world is either good or bad. It is not that the world can give you either joy or sorrow. Whatever you experience in life is determined by your mind. Two people put in the same situation, exactly in the same situation. One feels a great sense of joy and happiness, and the other is miserable. It is both because of the nature of their mind. Clear? So number one, whatever we experience in this world, whether joys or sorrow, whatever we experience is according to our mind. Therefore, if our mind is cheerful and happy, the world is a wonderful place. If our mind is miserable, the world is a terrible place. Yeah? Therefore, if we have to make the world look beautiful, we don't have to do any changes in the world. All we have to do is change the mind. Let me give you an example. It's the first thing to understand about the mind also. It's a very famous example given by many great philosophers as well as saints and sages. Give two people a glass of milk, but fill it half with milk. And from that you can clearly see what is the mind of the two people. There will be one looking at the glass and feeling utterly miserable. Why? Because it is half empty. And the other looks at it and is full of joy. The glass is half full. Is it not? There are two ways of looking at a thing. If our mind can be trained in such a way that we can see always that which is positive, then each minute we can be cheerful. Therefore, what is very important is our attitude in our mind. Thus, one sees the glass half empty and is crying over the half empty glass, while the other says, at least it is half full. These are the two types of people in general that you see in the world. One who looks at every situation from a negative standpoint, and the other who looks at it from the positive standpoint. The one who always sees it with a mind with a positive attitude, such person, even in the midst of suffering, in the midst of things where others are miserable, he can be very cheerful. While there are others who have not the right attitudes of the mind, they are very miserable. Now, somebody will say, but what to do? This is the way my mind is. What do I do with this mind? That's why the topic, mastery over the mind. Master the mind. At the same time, not only the world that we experience outside is determined by the color or the texture of our mind, but at this moment, Each one of us at this moment, we are what our mind is. Is it not? If my mind is miserable, I am miserable. If my mind is dull, I am dull. If my mind is good, I am good. If my mind is bad, I am bad. Is it not? Thus, me and my life depends on this equipment which is called as the mind. And it is with this mind we can either make our life or we can mar our life. Therefore, our rishis, the great ancient seers, and some of them were great kings who had conquered the world. But having conquered the world, they realized you may conquer the world, you may conquer anything, but if you've not conquered your mind, you have conquered nothing. See, if you see day to day, every day, each one of us in the world of competition, each one is trying to conquer over the other, isn't it? In your office, you are trying to conquer over others. In your business, you want to take over the business of everybody else. Is it not? Each one wants to conquer more and more land. In the family also, husband wants to be over the wife. The wife wants to conquer over the husband. In India, there's a joke about it, that Billi kisne pehle mari? Who killed the cat first? And some of the chauvinistic young men had told one boy who was getting married, young man who was getting married, and told that man, when you get married, make sure that on the first night you kill a cat. And after you kill the cat, you tell your wife, newlywed wife, on the very first night, that if you don't do what I want you to do, then, and just leave it at that. Now, just after the marriage night, he has killed a cat, strangled a cat, and he tells his young bride that if you don't follow what I say, then, she saw what he did to the cat, she was imagining what would he do to her then. And every day would come up, if you don't do what I say, then, finally she was so terrified, and everything she's trying to do in the house so well, that in case he comes back and if I have not done what he said, then, so terrified, till one day when she went to her house, her mother's house, and when her elder sister met her, and some of her older friends met her, and they saw that she's not very happy. They said, what's happening? She says, I'm terrified in the house. Like that he's a nice man. Every woman says, like that he's a nice man. Yeah? But, that but follows. Yeah? But every day he tells me, and she told the incident how he killed the cat and kept telling that if you don't do what I want you to do, then, I said, I'm so frightened. The elder sister said, next time he says, then you ask him, then what? She said, no, Baba, I'm afraid. I said, no, you just ask him, then what? Loudly you ask. And that day he came home and says, have you done what I've said? Otherwise, then, and she said, then what? Otherwise what? Suddenly he said, otherwise nothing, I will do nothing. See? Even the family, we want to dominate, we want to conquer. This instinct of conquering, this animalistic instinct of conquering is there. But our saints and sages have said that you may have conquered the entire world, but if you have not conquered your mind, then you are still a slave. You have no freedom in your life. Everybody screams for freedom, 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 freedom. Today everywhere, children are revolting against even children nowadays in America. They want freedom. Youngsters, freedom. People in every country, in every province, they want the freedom of that country, of that province. They want freedom. Women nowadays, feminist movement, freedom from men. And every married man thinks that I want freedom from my wife. Yeah? Everybody wants freedom, 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 freedom. But what is this freedom? We may get freedom in the world. In India, we scream for freedom, but what did we do with our country after the freedom? South Africa has screamed for its freedom for so many years. Now what is it doing with its country? freedom, we may get whatever outside freedom we have, but we don't understand that until and unless we have mastered our mind, we are encaged, entrapped, and enslaved by this mind. Today, whatever your mind wants, you have to do, isn't it? How many of us have the courage to sit back and tell the mind, shut up, and do what I tell you to do? Is it not? You set an alarm in the morning with the attitude that I should get up in the morning and be early for my work. You put on the alarm. But who decides, who votes finally in the morning? Who wins? The moment the alarm goes TT, 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 yeah? And you are telling, get up, get up, get up, and your mind says, shut up, shut up, shut up. Yeah? The mind says, shut up, shut up, shut up. And finally who? Finally the mind wins only, isn't it? Which of us is free to do what we think is right to be done? The mind decides the word and we follow what the mind says. Therefore our Rishi says that you may conquer the entire world, but if you have not conquered your mind, you have conquered nothing. And therefore Sri Guru Nanak Ji, the great saint of Punjab, has said the very famous statement, Man jeete jag jeet. He who has conquered and mastered his mind, he has conquered the entire world. In fact, he who has mastered his mind, he has the mastery over anything in this world. But he who has not mastered his mind, even if he has everything in the world, he will either lose it or he cannot even enjoy it. Ancient literature in India gives beautiful examples, historical examples. And you can see it in your history, wherever you are, in whichever part of the world. That wherever there is a person of mind control who has mastered his mind, such a person, even if he has got nothing, has become the king of kings. While there are people who had kingship, etc., but no control over their mind, they have lost everything. You see Caesar in the West, having the kingdom of Rome, and what did he do with the kingdom of Rome? Because no control over his mind, what he felt like doing. One day he decides to burn burn Rome, he burns Rome. He wants to eat or eat, he eats. Finally he's sick, he's dying, but he will still eat. Is it not? No control over himself. While there are others who control themselves and see how they mastered their life. Those who have their mind under control, only those can be continuously successful in the world. While for others, if luck brings them success, when the mind is not under control, they will lose it all. Recently in the Time magazine, it was pointed out, an experiment that was done, where they had a whole bunch of children put in a room, and they were playing around, and their instructor, who was with them, playing around with them, finally put a tray of candies in the middle of the hall. And he told the children that don't eat the candies till I come back. Don't eat the candies. And they were videoing the whole session, and they found that some children, they could very easily control. There were others who were struggling to control, they were not looking at it and trying their best to control, but they did not eat it. And there were some who could not control, and they went and ate it. When they saw their achievements in their lives, it was clear that those who had mastery over their mind, they were more successful, while those who could not control themselves were generally failures. Thus, even in your life, he who has mastered the mind, he can conquer the world. But he who has conquered the world, but has not mastered his mind, he will lose everything. In the Ramayana, we have this beautiful example. Ramchandraji on one side, who has been exiled by his stepmother. He's living in the forest. He's got nothing absolutely. But 14 years after living in the forest, and that too also peacefully and cheerfully, he returns to become a king and runs a kingdom which has no match till today in the history of the world. While on the other hand, the king of Lanka, Ravana, has got a kingdom made up of gold and jewels, but has got no control over his mind. He sees anything, he wants it. That's it. He has no control about it. Whether right or wrong, even another man's wife, he wants it. And he has no control over himself. Finally, he loses his kingdom, he loses his family, he loses his life. Thus many such, in any history of the world you will find, that wherever there will be a person who has mastered his mind, whatever luck may bring him, he would have conquered that and risen even above his destiny. While those who win with a glorious destiny, when they have no control over their mind, they lose everything in this world. Therefore our Rishi said, master the mind. Now, you can conquer the entire world, but to conquer your own mind is the most difficult thing in the world. And therefore, it is not an easy battle with the mind. To conquer an enemy outside your house is far easier, even relatively in the world. When you have someone to fight outside your house, it is easier. But if your enemy was in the house itself, do you know how dangerous it is? The enemy in your own house. It is far difficult to fight. And here it is not in your own house, it is in your own personality. You have to live with it every moment of your life. And therefore, we have to learn to master this mind, lift this mind. And therefore in the Gita, in the chapter of meditation, Shri Krishna has beautifully pointed out that Uddhared Atmanam Atmanam Atma Atmanam Na Atmanam Avasadayet. He says, lift yourself by yourself. Means lift your mind by yourself. Na Atmanam Avasadayet. And having lifted your mind, don't allow your mind to fall back again. So two things. Lift your mind by yourself from its present condition. At the same time, na atmanam avasadayet. Don't bring your mind down again. Atmahi atmano bandhuhu. That this mind is your greatest friend. Atmaiva ripu atmanaha. That this mind itself is your greatest enemy. To lift yourself by yourself. And see how the greatest king of all yogas, Krishna himself says, lift yourself by yourself. And nowadays everybody goes to those cheap religious leaders who will say, I'll give you a magic touch. Yeah? And then, you'll have an experience of Godhood. Nobody. You have to lift your mind by yourself. Nobody has an entry into your mind to lift your mind. The teachers can only instruct you. You have to lift by yourself. And having once lifted yourself, don't bring yourself down. And remember always that if there is a greatest friend that you have, it is your mind. And if the deadliest enemy that you have, it is your own mind. And which is the mind which is your greatest friend, and which is your mind which is your greatest enemy? Krishna explains, he says, that mind which is under your mastery and your control, it is your greatest friend. And that mind which is not under your control, it is your deadliest enemy. In the Gita, in the chapter of meditation, Krishna has pointed out this, and you can observe it in your life. It is your mind who tricks you into all the sufferings, while the mind which is under your control can take you to the greatest progress in life, including to the state of Godhead. That is the beautiful equipment that we have in our life. But you see, whatever it is, that which can be the greatest blessing can also be the greatest curse, isn't it? Atomic energy was discovered as a solution to the world's energy crisis. It was a wonder. And what did we use it for? Atomic bombs, isn't it? Even in the world, the most wonderful thing, man with his mind can corrupt and use it for destruction. When the mind is destructive, the whole world we can use for destruction. And when the mind is constructive, everything, even that which is destructive, is made constructive by the mind. Thus it is your best friend and your deadliest enemy. Therefore, this whole human life is given to us is to become masters of our own mind. Man may conquer anything in this world. He may have people under his command. He may have kingship. He may have commanded wealth. He may have even been able to command his youngster at home. Yeah? Still, if he cannot command his mind, he has mastery over nothing. Now the question is that this mind, how do I master? As I said, this mind is a very tricky thing. You can conquer any enemy, but to conquer this mind is not very easy. Kings who conquered the world could not conquer their mind. So first of all, we must understand what is this mind. Because when you have to conquer an enemy, you have to understand the enemy very well. And if you have to make that enemy your friend, you have to understand him even further. Yeah? There is one thing, you destroy your enemy. The other is you use your enemy as an asset for yourself. I don't think any one of you want to destroy your mind, isn't it? No. We don't want to destroy the mind. We want the mind to be helpful to us. Therefore, first of all, there are many techniques nowadays pointed out just in general of meditation, etc. But without understanding the mind, even meditating becomes agitating only. Isn't it? Therefore, what is the mind? First we have to understand. Everybody talks about mind, my mind, my mind. But what is the mind? Number one, mind is made up of thoughts. Is it not? When you are thinking, you are in the mind state, is it not? Mind is made up of thoughts. That's not very difficult to understand. But very important is to understand that mere thoughts do not go to make up the mind. Mere thoughts do not go to make up the mind. It is a continuous flow of thoughts that is called as the mind. Where there is only a thought, it is not the mind. It's not just a bundle of thoughts put together. It's a continuous flow of thoughts. One thought rises, the other thought dissolves, the other thought dissolves, the other thought rises. It's a continuous flow of thoughts. It is called as the mind. Just like just water is not a river. Even gallons of water is not a river. It is the flow of water that is called as the river. Therefore, the mind has been compared to a river by the rishis. Mind is compared to as a river. Now, this river of the mind, now you take the river we have seen, mind we have still not seen properly. But you can see the river and then you can see your mind. Now, when you see a river is made up of water. The texture of the river will be, whether muddy or dirty, will depend on the waters of the river. Okay? Then a river has a direction which is flowing. It can go into fields and irrigate the fields and bring luscious greenery everywhere. Or it can choose a path to go through the Rocky Mountains and exhaust itself in the ocean. Totally wasteful. Or it can go into those channels where it dries itself and reaches nowhere. Again, the flow of the river will depend also on the quantity of the river. So the river is according to the quality of the water, the quantity of the water, and the direction in which the river is flowing. Isn't it? It can go into useless directions and dry itself up in the rocks. It can go and gush itself into the ocean, or it can on the way irrigate various fields and bring about food, flowers and greenery everywhere. Though its final destination is the ocean, but in between, it can bring about the flowering, greenery and prosperity everywhere. Keep this image of the river in your mind. The river comes from the pure mountains. When the rain falls on the pure mountains, the water which is collected on the pure mountains, where it is gathered on the pure mountains, that water is crystal clear, steady, unmoving, placid, calm, peaceful. But the moment it gets agitated, it begins to trickle down the mountains. As it begins to come down the mountains, its flow becomes faster, it gathers other streams together, it picks up the dust and the gravel, etc. And finally, by the time it reaches the plain, it is a river gushing with madness towards the ocean. Muddy, heavy, full of water, it is gushing towards the ocean. Now the texture of the water will be from the channels which is moving, how much mud is there. Thus it can be a muddy river or it can be a crystal clear river. When the banks of the river are not strong, the flow of the river cannot be strong, and what happens? The river dissipates itself. Same way now you compare your mind. Essentially, each one's mind, essentially, the nature of the mind is purity, calmness and peace. When for some reason there's a little disturbance in the mind, the flow of thoughts begin. And when this flow of thought is uncontrolled, it becomes a mighty river. Finally, it cannot be controlled. Now, how do you control a river? Nowadays, we know, we dam the river. But when a river is very strong, if you merely dam the river, if you merely put a wall there, if the river is very strong, it will break the walls of the dam and it will burst forth and flood the area around it. Unfortunately, that is what most people around the world do. Either they go with the flow of the mind and get washed away into the ocean, or they either suppress the mind by damming the mind and build in such a force that one day it bursts forth and destroys their entire life. Thus in this world we find only two things. Either people are expressing themselves continuously without any control. What they feel like doing, they do it. And in that case they sometimes harm themselves also. Isn't it? You see some food there, especially if you're an Indian and there's the chili there. There's a red chili fried very well, and also salted. Now it is kept in front of you. You know it will go into your mouth, it's going to burn. If it goes into your stomach, it's going to create ulcers. And by the time it is washed out tomorrow, it will be burning. You know it, but it will be in front of you. What do you feel? Either you express, or we look at it and say, no, I shouldn't be eating it. I want to eat it, but I shouldn't be eating it. And if you want to eat it, but I shouldn't be eating it. And we only suppress it. That whole night you keep dreaming of that big chili. Yeah. So either we are expressing or we are suppressing. And really speaking, most of us don't know. In fact, I was been recently traveling around the world, and they have these workshops and seminars where they spend so much money, even $1,000, $2,000. And I wonder, I said, when we have seminars that are also free for donations, people don't take out anything from their pockets. Yeah? Till I find out what makes people give $1,000. And when I read their books, it's of nothing, of no substance whatsoever. I couldn't understand. What is it in these seminars that they are workshops and all that, and people spend $1,000? I say, here, we have to do so much for the world and no money. Yeah. How is it possible? Till I started talking to the people who are going through the seminars, and it was clear what they were doing, how they were hoodwinking the people. You give them to do what they feel like doing, and they are your slave for life. You give them a spiritual sanction for all their negativities. And don't suppress, don't keep it inside. Because suppression is always painful. So express freely. You want to scream, you scream. You want to try it now, you'll find it's very enjoyable. You want to beat that other person beside you because he's nudging you all the time? Get up and give him two. It'll make you feel really very good at that moment. Don't suppress inside, don't keep inside. You give them. And if you're angry at your parents, take a chair, break the chair. Yeah? And these seminars take about $1,000, mind you. I thought, why is it? Because it gives you a sense of relief. But then it rebounds at you in the form of guilt. Today those people almost shattered and broken, they come up to me and say, we went on expressing because we had so much suppression. So suppression, when you release through expression, it gives you a great joy, no doubt. But it rebounds back on you in a form of a greater guilt, which again creates suppression. This is what is going on today in the world in the name of mastering your life. So, this type of expression or suppression, both are disastrous for the mind. Then how do we do it? The rishis said, if you don't control the mind, it will wash you away into the oceans and drown you there. If you merely dam the river, it will be contained for some time, but one day it will blast forth. Haven't you seen that with children? They love watching TV, playing there. If you have a computer in the house and the TV game that you have, all the time they are sitting there. Then mommy uses force. You are not going for the TV. So she locks the door. And somehow or the other they know when to find the key and how to find the key. Because there are no secrets from children in the house. As long as mummy is there, they are very under control. No sooner mummy is gone out or on the telephone with her friend. And they know also which friend is going to take a lot of time because who gossips the most. Yeah? No sooner the control is left, they are bang on the television. Isn't it? See, anything in your life. If an examination is coming, at that time you don't go to your discos, you don't go to your parties, you don't watch television. But once it is over, the day the examination is over, that night what happens? You know that everywhere, isn't it? Only suppressions. Suppressions cannot help us. If you try to suppress the mind, one day like a volcano it will burst forth and destroy everything around it. More the suppression, greater will be its destruction. At the same time, if you just go on expressing, no doubt inside you won't be tortured, but it will rebound back again. Thus, just as we control the river, so also we must control the mind. We have not only to stop the river, a dam has to be made so that it doesn't move in the direction that is moving. You have to allow some water to flow through. And the other water which you have already conserved, use it in a positive direction. If you don't give the river a new direction, it will again blast forth on the walls of the dam and go forward. Overnight you cannot dam it. Slowly, you change the direction of the river, reduce the quantity of the water, all the heavy stones, etc., you help it to wash it out. Finally, that river can be useful to you wherever you want to irrigate it. Whether you want to take it in meditation to the heights of spirituality, or whether you want to use it for the prosperity in the world, the mind which is mastered by you can be used any way you would like to use it. Clear? So that is how. Now the thing is there, first of all, what gives power to the mind? So three things we have to do is reduce the quantity of the mind, reduce the quality and speed of the mind, and change the direction of the mind. Just like for a river. You have to you have to change the quality. If it is full with boulders and pebbles, etc., it hits with a mighty blow. You have to reduce its quantity. You have to reduce its flow, and then dam it and give it a direction. Then you can take the waters wherever you want, in whichever field, either to bring about electricity, either to bring about irrigation. You can use that water the way you would like it. Isn't it? Any one of us who doesn't want to master the mind in this way here, put your hands up right now. So it is helpful in everything in our life if we master this mind. Now the first thing is, from where does this mind get its power? From where does it get its power? Number one, as long as I am not alive and conscious. This is a little deeper, and then we'll come to a simpler understanding. So carefully listen. Mind itself has got no power until and unless it is vitalized by you, the consciousness. I repeat this. It's a statement of fact I'm giving. I'm not going to go through much logic for this reason at the moment. It is not necessary. But I'm just making a statement, note it in your mind. That mind by itself has got no power. Mind gets its existence as well as its vitality from me, the consciousness. For example, a fan has got no movement. When it is charged with electricity, the fan begins to move. This is just for your ultimate understanding, and we'll see how you train your mind today so that tomorrow we can take you to a little higher meditation. Okay? But what gives the gush and the power? The vitality comes from the consciousness. But what gives it this torrential power, this mighty power to the mind, that it becomes uncontrollable? In a chapter of meditation, Arjuna asks Krishna this question. That Krishna, you are talking about controlling this mind in meditation. I think it is impossible. And he himself describes this mind. He says that this mind is absolutely unsteady and fickle. Is it not? Unsteady means it can never stay in one place at one time. And fickle, even if it is in one place at one time, it keeps changing all the time. And not only it is unsteady and fickle, it is as mighty powerful as a storm. You can control anything, but can you control a cyclone, a hurricane, or a typhoon? Just like the wind is uncontrollable, such is the mind. And our rishis have pointed out it to be like a monkey. You know which monkey? First of all, monkey by itself is, it cannot stay on one branch. It will jump from one branch to the other branch to the other branch. Now watch your mind. If it's not like a monkey, how is it? At no period, 1 minute, if somebody were to tape your mind, if somebody were to tape our mind, I tell you the conversation of our mind would be very interesting. I have to make the food very nice today. But the recipe books are not doing a good job. These ladies nowadays, they make the recipes book and they only want to make money. Nowadays everybody wants to make money. Money, money, money. Then the song comes, money, money, money. Yeah, see that Michael Jackson, how much money is he making? But in America, all the youngsters are getting spoiled there, And but the Hindi film that I saw yesterday was very nice, They're bringing out these nice movies today. Yeah? Then immediately some song comes inside, Oh, this morning, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. We must master the mind. But this mind, this mind, never mind the mind. I tell you, if you were to tape the mind, it would have gone round the world 20 times in 1 minute. It is never steady. And even when it is on one thing, like a monkey, if it's sitting on a branch, it may not be jumping from the branch to branch. Sometimes it stays on one branch, but even there also. It cannot remain steady. Such is the mind. Try catching a monkey. It is difficult from one branch to the other. Plus, it is to add to it, they say, if there be a monkey who was given wine to drink, and plus we were sitting on a branch and broke a beehive and there were bees stinging it, now what would be the condition of that monkey? From which branch to which branch took place more fierce than before. But only his mental reorientation was changed. And that very fellow who fell down helplessly, who could neither cry nor get up and fight, finally turns out to be the greatest hero in the battle of righteousness. Thus, this mind, and then it is explained there that what gives power to this mind. At this moment, we don't dictate the mind. The mind is dictating us. But what is that power that dictates our mind? I'll give you an incident and you can watch that how it happens in your life. I travel a lot, and during my travels, I go to people's houses because sannyasi, I do all the work all the time. So once a meal, so twice a day a meal, people give us. And amongst the Indians especially, to call a Swami to the house is a privilege. Now if the Swami comes to the house once a year, each time you go there it is a feast. And then when they find out that this is a young Swami, and especially I travel all around abroad, every part of the world, so then they come up with this idea, Swamiji, do we have to always make only Indian food for you? I said, food is food, you can give me any food. And each place they experiment with a new food with me. I must be a food connoisseur by now, Yeah. I remember during my early days when I came from the ashram and I started moving about. And I went to this one place and there plenty of youngsters were coming to my talks. Children, youngsters were also coming. And all the adults got so excited to see someone young, like us. Giving talks and all that, and they could freely talk with me and all that. So one day, one of the ladies had the little audacity to come up to me and said, Swamiji, I'm calling all the youngsters in my house on the my day of my dinner, and you can meet all the youngsters. I'm bringing some of the wild ones also, and so that you can convince them, for coming for the camp and all that and all that. So I said, fine. But she said, Swamiji, do I have to make only Indian food because they won't enjoy it? I said, you make whatever they like. They said, Swamiji, have you tried a pizza? Yeah. I said, no, I don't know what it is. It's an Italian dish. So I said, what is this pizza? Because before I say yes for it, what is this pizza? Swamiji, very good. All the youngsters love it, all around. Don't you see when you go on the street, you have this huts there, So I said that Pizza Hut. No, Swamiji, that ZZ is to be pronounced in Italian as pizza, not as pizza. So I said, okay, that pizza. But what is it all about? Oh, Swamiji, and she tried to describe it, but it was so vague. But Swamiji, it's very nice. Youngsters love it. One or two youngsters there. Swamiji, will you eat pizza? It's excellent, Swamiji. We love it every day. Now I hear about this pizza, and I say that, okay, I agreed. Now every day I hear pizza. Swamiji is going to eat pizza, pizza. It's an excitement for the town. Yeah. Pizza. So every day I go and I look at any new dish. I say, is that the pizza? No, Swamiji, this is not the pizza. And her dinner happens to be on the last day. And she's told everybody that nobody is going to make pizza for Swamiji. I am making. Yeah. So I've been waiting for the pizza, but nowhere the pizza comes. Fine. I've never eaten pizza. 2 days afterwards I forgot. As long as they wouldn't remind me, what does it matter? Another food to eat. You eat 3 times a day, now what else? Finally, on the last day I went there, I said, quickly give me food so I can speak to the youngsters. Swamiji, today no, quick. Today we are making pizzas. Suddenly they reminded me. And expected me to be excited. I was not even excited. I said, get over with it, just give the food. And so I can speak to the youngsters, they've got so many questions. So I was saying, give the food. Now there, while I'm speaking to the youngster, question answer. one stinkingly strong smell comes. Here, small smell. And I looked around, I said, who has... I looked around trying to look at them. Who has? And I said, what is this smell? This is Swamiji, that's pizza. So I said, it smells so strong. Swamiji, that's the spices, the oregano in it. So what is this oregano? It really smells. Finally, I'm talking to them, but they are excited. This pizza is getting ready. Pizza is getting ready. I said, forget it now. Stop that. Close that door. That stink is coming. Let me speak to the youngsters. Now, while I'm talking, and finally the lady comes and says, Swamiji, you can talk afterwards now. Come and sit on the table. I sat on the table. First came the salad bowl. I said, that's the pizza. Swamiji, that's salad. It's not pizza. Yeah. Then came, one wormy-like dish. It's like, worms crawled over each other. I said, is that the pizza? They said, no, Swami, that's spaghetti. So I said, thank God that's not the pizza. And I thought I was only adventuring on one pizza. Yes, spaghetti was also there. Fine. Then I'm waiting, and suddenly the door opens and comes this one tray. I just want to get over with my food. And they are excited about pizza. I had no excitement about pizza, absolutely. It's just that they kept bothering me. And they brought the pizza, sizzling pizza, right in front of me. And said, Swamiji, this is pizza. Okay. I looked at it. It looked like one white piece of flesh with blood over the top. With white pus oozing out from it. Yeah? And some brown boils on it. I said, this is what the youngsters are eating nowadays? No wonder this is what's happening to their mind. Looking at that, it was not at all an appetizing sight. But what to do? I said I will eat it. And I had to do my Brahma Arpanam, Brahma Havir. Said my grace before the prayer. Now, oh Lord, you are in front of me like the food. So how can I reject it? So she took this cutter, fancy cutter with a fork, and she cut it into triangles. I was hoping she cut me a small piece only. Yeah. And finally, she cut that and took out the biggest piece for the Swami. I said, no, you can give me the others one. Let the youngsters eat it. And she gave me one small piece. And when it was on my table, I almost closed my eyes and I took it and I said, get over with it quickly. So I immediately put it in my mouth. Just when it went in my mouth, she screamed, Swamiji, don't! I said, she gave me to it, why not don't? Suddenly I realized when that thing stuck over my palate, hot and burnt my mouth. Why don't they tell me before how to eat a pizza? But when it fell down from my mouth, and I started chewing it, everybody is watching me with suspense. And I ate one. Then I tried the other one. Third one. It looks terrible, but it's not that bad. Meanwhile, they saw all the youngsters picked up after the Swami has eaten. Everybody picked up the pizza. And by the time that little piece was over, I regretted why I didn't have the big one. And I looked at it, there was nothing on the tray. Then came all the dishes they were giving me, but my mind is looking, where's the pizza? All these youngsters shamelessly ate it away. My mind is going pizza, 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 pizza. But Swami, he can't ask, give me more. So, pizza, pizza, whatever is given, he accepts it on the plate. Pizza, pizza, pizza. But mind is going pizza, 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 pizza. After she gave everything and I was not eating. Swamiji, why you're not eating anything? No, but my stomach is enough. And suddenly she says, Swamiji, but don't eat too much. Because another tray of pizza is coming. Oh, I was so happy it is coming. And it came. Finally, I thought she wouldn't even ask for another pizza. And then she says, will you have one pizza? Indian style. That's why, many foreigners who come to India, they always check. This means yes. This means no. But what is this? Does it mean no? What does it mean? I said, no. When it is done like Kathakali style, it means yes. But it is being saved. In case you don't give, I meant no. So those of you go to India or with Indians, whenever they say, which means yes only. So I said, I did like that, and they gave me that other piece of pizza, and she said, Swamiji, one is enough. I said, no, other will also do. Before these youngsters come and grab everything. And they saw me eating the pizza, they were very, Swamiji likes the pizza, Swamiji likes the pizza, Swamiji like. But after having eaten that pizza, every time I pass the Pizza Hut, pizza, 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 and I have to control. I'm a Swami, I've got no money in my pocket. Pizza, 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 pizza. But mine goes pizza, 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 pizza. In Australia, nobody make pizza, they call it junk food, but my mind goes pizza, 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 pizza. Then the mind gets its momentum from what? Action by action, thought by thought. Each one of us, when we do an action, when the result of that action comes, how we respond to that action, when we identify with the result of that action, it leaves behind an impression in the mind. A channel is cut in our personality, and then the waters of our thoughts begin to flow in that. The more you entertain that thought, the more you express that action, each time it cuts a channel in your personality. It creates an impression in the personality. It creates a belief pattern in your personality. I like this, I dislike this. What I like, I desire. What I dislike, I reject. Thus it goes on creating these channels in our personality, which later on becomes habits and even addictions. But each one of us, action by action in our past, thought by thought in our mind, we have cut certain channels, a certain path. So today when the thoughts start flowing, they have to move in that direction only, isn't it? So whenever I pass by Pizza Hut, where does my mind go? Pizza, 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 pizza. It'll go there only. It goes in that direction. You take everything that you have. Action by action you have created your desires, your likes and dislikes. And today, these likes and dislikes have become so powerful that even if you want to move your mind in another channel, you cannot move the mind, because the force of your past beliefs, the force of your past impressions, the force of your past likes and dislikes, the force of your unmanifest desires that you have created through your actions and your thinking, today it is a mighty force which has cut a channel. And your waters, when they begin to flow, they not only flow in that channel, but that desire gives it a force to move ahead. So action by action we made a channel. At the same time our likes and dislikes, our desires, they give the thrust to the mind, and all the thoughts helplessly go that direction. If in the past you have been good, today even if you try to be bad, you can't be bad. Is it not? You are a slave of your past. Good is that you were good. And if you've been bad, then after listening to the discourse on Master the Mind, you think overnight you can become a saint? Tomorrow you'll be back to normal. Is it not? Same thing. Because the mind has already got a channel. What we have to do is create new channels in the direction that we want. Reduce that power that makes the mind so strong and gush and uncontrollable. That power is the power of likes and dislikes. That is the power of desire. That gives the power, the gush to the mind, and your actions of the past, it gives it a direction. Once you've understood this force and how this channel is made, action by action, thought by thought, it is in the past that we created this channel, isn't it? But mind you, we don't have to be a victim of it, because don't forget, you created it. Something like this. On a cassette, audio cassette, When I was a youngster, I filled in Saturday Night Fever, disco music. As I started growing on, some soft, gentle music. Now when I found that cassette, all the love songs in it, what will a Swami do with all those love songs? Now when I play those, it is of no use to me. But when I play the tape recorder, that song will only come. Either the disco sound will come, or those love songs will come. I have no choice when I put on the tape recorder. It will come. What has been taped, what has been etched on the audio cassette, that only the speaker will bring forth. Same way also in our life. What we have etched in the past, that... But don't forget, I taped it. Thus I can re-record on it. And re-record now what I think is best for me. Is it not? If today I want hymns on it, now when I play it, it'll be same those loud music or the love songs. But when I press the record button, an extra button there, and re-tape it, next time when I play, what I will get out of it is hymns. How to do that will be explained tomorrow. So today, understand what is the mind. Very briefly we have explained in the analogy of a river. The more you think and contemplate on, meditate upon it, you will understand what is the mind. We explained to you how the river is controlled. What gives the power to this mind? We have explained it to you. And tomorrow, we shall explain to you in a very simple manner how very easily you can bring this mind under control. In your day-to-day living, while performing your day-to-day actions, how you can bring this mind under your control. That will be the theme tomorrow. And whatever instruction is given, if you practice it, you'll have the mastery over the mind. So we'll meet again tomorrow, same time.